Um, all right, I think we should be live. Yes, sounds like we're live, which is very exciting stuff. Um, cool. Hey guys, we'll get started in around like 30 seconds. Let me share my screen. Cool. But I guess yeah, while we're waiting a few seconds, we can all introduce ourselves real quick. We're all part of the HackMIT dev team. My name's Vinny.
My name is Yiqi.
I'm Audrey.
I'm Ryan.
I'm Jason.
And I'm Laura.
Cool. Yeah. So why don't we go ahead and I guess in 1 second get started. 1 sec. Do this. Hmm, 1 sec. Okay, let me screen share now. I think we should be good. Okay. Let me know if you guys can see my screen. If so, we'll get started. I see some chatter saying I spy Timmy. Timmy will be joining very soon. Cool. Yeah, all right, but welcome to the HackMIT Puzzle 2026 live stream. Very excited that you're all able to join us and, watch as we walk through some of the puzzles that the dev team was able to have a lot of fun building and also have a lot of fun watching you guys all sort of take time to complete. So a little bit of context about what the HackMIT Admissions Puzzle Contest is. It's a yearly CTF style challenge for automatic guaranteed admission into HackMIT. And if you're among the top 50 scores among all of the sort of competitors within the puzzle competition, you're going to be guaranteed automatic admission to our hackathon in September. And if you are just tuning in for the first time and you haven't been able to try out any of the puzzles yourself, they're currently closed, but we're soon going to be reopening them in the upcoming week. And you can find it at we.hackmit.org. Um, and now I wanted to introduce you, Ting, to talk a little bit about some stats and some more introductions.
Yeah, so this year around like 1,089 users created an account, which is like a little more than last year. And there's like more stats on the slides here. And overall, face value was the easiest puzzle, and We Are Family was the hardest before the hint release. Um, do you want to go to next slide? Yeah, so for this year, the entry point of the puzzle is hinted at in our FAQ. The key phrase here is you'll find the key to begin. So near the top of the sponsor section on our main website, you'll find a clickable key. And after you click on it, three numbers will appear. The start date to HackMIT is September 19th. So if you click on the numbers in the order of 0919, you'll be redirected to the puzzle page. again. So near the top of the sponsor section. Okay, now I'll pass it over to Jason, which will go over the solution to our first puzzle, Feather Fever.
All right. I'm just going to share my screen for a moment. Let's see. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So this is Feather Fever. It was, I believe, the hardest puzzle after the Hint for We Are Family was released, and it was written by myself and Yu Ting. Yeah. So the way this puzzle works is the solution is pretty long. It has 3 steps in total. And the first step is to play this rhythm game that is presented in the interface of Feather Fever. For those of you who know about the Rhythm Heaven franchise, Feather Fever is a mini game based on Rhythm Heaven Fever, which is a Wii game released in like the 2010s-ish. The way that these Rhythm Heaven Fever games work is they're basically collections of mini games where every mini game has like some music playing in the background and then some rhythmic cues. And based on the cues that you hear, you need to press the button or buttons in time to the music. And so it's a rhythm game with just a one button press pretty much. Feather Fever works pretty similarly. So there are 2 types of cues. The first type of cue is 3 evenly spaced woodblock type hits. And when you hear that, you need to tap the spacebar at the timing of the 4th and the 5th in the sequence. And the second type of cue is 3 evenly spaced triangle hits. When you hear those, you need to hold the spacebar for half a beat, starting where the 4th one in the sequence would be. You can also see down here, there is an image of some sheet music, which gives an example of what this looks like expressed in musical notation. But now we're just going to do a live playthrough of the game so I can demonstrate how it looks and how it works, and hopefully not mess things up too much. Get this open. All right. Okay. So this is a 1.5-minute long game, and as you can see here, there are cues, and you can hear that there's 3 hits in the background, and I'm tapping on the 4th and 5th. And as I do this, if I do it right, I should be getting these speech bubbles that show emojis, and if I get it wrong, then I'll get an X instead. I'm going to try not to get things wrong though. And yeah, so we can see here there's the hold cues as well. There I missed one, and so the emojis that show up next are going to be an X instead. And yeah, you can also hear that some of the durations of the cues might change, and so here's a longer one. And that was a much quicker one. The cues can also overlap like this. And it's pretty tough because to get an input correct, you have to be within 60 milliseconds of the timing. And so you can see here that it's a little tricky. Okay, so at the end I messed up a little bit, but you can see that as you get the game correct, you unlock these clues, and you can play the game multiple times to unlock more clues over time. So here I only got 9 of them, but I can play again a second time if I want to get all of the clues. And these clues will be needed for the second step of the puzzle, where we need to figure out what to do with these clues. And I'm going to pass things off to Yu Ting to discuss how that works.
Yeah, so if you happen to know the inspiration behind this puzzle, Rhythm Heaven Fever, or just by doing some like Googling online, you can find out that each of these clues actually correspond to a minigame within Rhythm Heaven Fever. Can you go to next? Yeah. So for example, here, Screwbot Factory is represented by a screwdriver emoji and a robot emoji. And then next slide. Yeah, so if you index into the minigame titles using the numbers after the emojis and concatenate all of the characters together, you'll get the phrase menu theme Visioneer Hugh Birds.
All right. Yeah, that's the second step of the puzzle. I'll take things back for the final step. So once you get this phrase, menu theme visionary Huberts, there is this question of, okay, what does that mean? For now, we're going to ignore this visionary Hubert step and just focus on the clue of menu theme. So looking at the main menu page, if you open DevTools, you'll see that these three audio files, main menu.wav, woodblock.wav, and triangle.wav get loaded. Main menu.wav is an 8-ish minute long audio file that loops the same 13.3 second song, which is a little suspicious because you might as well just send 13.3 seconds if you're going to loop it over and over. Woodblock.wav sounds just like cue number 1, and triangle.wav sounds like cue number 2. But if you listen closely, there's actually more to main menu.wav than it seems. You can actually hear snippets of the Q1 and Q2 sound effects pasted over the menu theme at seemingly random times. So let me show you what I mean. Here's triangle.wav. It sounds like this. It's this high-pitched-ish effect. And here's woodblock.wav. And here's a 10-second clip of the main menu theme that you get. And if you listen really closely to this, you can actually hear triangle.wav and woodblock.wav pasted over it. So what do you do with all this? Here's an example of, like a smaller example of what this might look like. So this rectangle is kind of like a timestamp. Every single circle here represents a timing at which triangle.wav or woodblock.wav gets played. And so we kind of have this like mess of timings that appears within the audio file. The idea here is to treat every instance of one of these audio files as an instance of one of the cues of the game itself. And to interpret what cues mean in the game, remember that we need to treat the cues as grouped in groups of 3 evenly spaced hits. And it turns out that in the main menu.wav file, the instances of woodblock.wav and triangle.wav can also be grouped into groupings of 3 evenly spaced hits. In this example, this is what that might look like. And once you figure out these groupings, you then imagine, okay, given each grouping, when do I hit the spacebar or hold the spacebar? That might look like these white circles or white dashes. So circles are taps and dashes are holds. And if you just combine all of the spacebar inputs together into a single line, the result looks suspiciously like Morse code, where every tap of the spacebar is a dot and every hold of the spacebar is a dash. In this case, the Morse code translates to LA. But in the actual example, of course, you just do the same thing using a script. It's a much bigger file, so you need to use a script to find the timings exactly, and then group each type of cue into evenly spaced triplets, then identify the corresponding timings of the taps and holds based on the rules of the game, and then parse the result in Morse code. Instead of LA, in the actual thing, you get this string of characters. And then finally, given this garbled string of characters, what you do is you apply the visionary cipher with key Huberts, and that gives you the final answer, avian influenza, which when submitted to the website gives you the flag. And that is Feather Fever.
Okay. I will share my screen for Survival of the Sixes. So this is a puzzle that me and Laura made together. So on the puzzle page, you can see that there's a flavor text. So this is a short blurb text that often hints towards the mechanism or theme of a puzzle. So here are the keywords survival, infinite field, dust, and lives, as well as the images on the bottom, like the blinker, point towards Conway Game Life. And the text at the top also says to make 6 groups of 6, referencing the New York Times game connections. So the rules of the game is pretty simple. You try to make groups with a common theme. In this case, all of the groups are CS themed. So we have sorting, cyber attack, Unix commands, NP complete, problems, HackMIT theme, and databases. So the next step of the puzzle is to use each of the group of 6 to see the initial grid for the Conway Game of Life. So the cells of each group is alive. For example, like on the side right here, this shows an example for the database group. And once you run the simulation from the starting grid, you'll get a pattern with a canonical name. So in this case, this pattern is known as a blinker, which matches to one of the images at the bottom.
So using the process that Yuchin just showed, you can find all 6 groups. So the 6 categories can So we have database, cyber attack, Unix, HackMIT theme, MP complete problems, and sorting. And then once you seed the grid with each of their corresponding positions, you can match it with the images that you see at the bottom. And then we have a number with a number that where you index each term. And here you can see that with database, if you use 1, you get the first letter, which is D. Cyber attack 2, you get the letter Y, and so on and so forth. It's also possible to completely bypass the Conway's Game of Life process just by looking at the number of blanks if you perfectly figure out each of the group's names. So, TLDR, you can run a simulation of Conway's Game of Life on each of the 6 configurations, and you eventually get 6 of these dust patterns to match the bottom, and once you index them, you get 6 letters, which in order yield the word dynamo.
Okay, now I'll pass it over to Audrey.
Yes, let me share my screen. So, hi, I'm Audrey. I was one of the co-creators of We Are Family along with Wendy. So, yeah, for this puzzle, we were inspired by the Me Parade and the avatar builder that we're all familiar with. So, yeah, we hope you all had fun creating your own Me's on our website. But have you ever wondered how all the Me's are related? Because we are family. So with that, let's dive into oh okay. Let's get started by deciphering the hint. So yeah, these are just like the brackets with like all the hints. So yeah, kind of going into the answer. Thing with bark but no bite is tree, and what a will leaves behind is inheritance, and a portrait painter tries to capture likeness. Parts of a tree responsible for photosynthesis is leaves. The number of eyes watching this clues is 2. The number of seasons in a year is 4. And the last one is what a cake has between its frosting, which is layers. So kind of putting these all together, um, yeah, what it means is all the Mi's that you see belong on one family tree, and then you can find like how, or you can construct the tree based on inheritance and likeness by looking at what similar traits the Mi's share. And the parade Mies are the only leaves. We want this to mean that the parade Mies are the only ones part of the youngest generation. And the roots belong to 2 means that the oldest generation of the tree starts with 2 people. And then 4 layers means that the family tree has 4 generations total. Yeah, so here a lot of work. This is kind of just like my thought process when I did a solve through. But I'll switch to sharing um, the game here. So basically, you know that yeah, these 4 are the youngest generation, and you can kind of see that Selena and Nora look like they're related, and then Anita and Russell look like they're related. So you know they're like siblings, the pairs of them. And just kind of going back to the plaza and looking at the traits, um, when you click on the Mii's, you can see like their characteristics. So you'll notice that Selena and Nora have the same face shape and nose as Brenda. And yeah, I feel like the similar, like you can kind of see similarities. And then in terms of the mouth, like only Matt and Mark have the same mouth as them. And yeah, then you can do like the same with Anita and Russell. Like their face shape is only shared by, I believe, Sarah, and then maybe one other me. Oh, I think Matt also has the same face shape. But yeah, let me just go back to my work. So yeah, basically what I did was I listed out all the similarities and like possible combinations for which Mii's could like be the parents. And then as you do this for all the Mies, you'll find the inheritance rules, which is that the mom gives the children beauty mark, face shape, eyes, nose, and then they will inherit from the dad the eyebrow shape, mouth shape, and whether they wear glasses or not. And then, yeah, other traits such as hair were not part of the inheritance rules. But yeah, you can see kind of with the strike throughs, I was able to like eliminate different combinations, and you can also figure out like which means are married into the tree versus like related through parent-children relationships. And yeah, you'll notice that Gracie, Ron, and Naomi all do not have like possible parents that they share the same or that they can inherit traits from. So you'll probably suspect that they two of the three of them are the generation zero. So suppose Naomi and Ron are generation zero, and then that basically eliminates all the like different combinations. So this is like the unique combination if Naomi and Ron are generation zero, and you'll notice that there will be a total of 5 generations, which is incorrect. So then you know that Gracie and Ron must be the first generation. And then yeah, so going back here, this like aside from the strike throughs, this is like the final tree. So yeah, now that you construct the tree with the 4 generations, um, you want to index into their names based on what generation they're in. And this is where the anagram comes in. So you want to organize the Mies in each generation based on their rainbow shirt order. And that's what the hint for Happy Pride Month was referring to, if you saw that pop up. And yeah, so then after you organize this and you extract the index with the correct order, you get the answer is grapes are greats. And yeah, that is We Are Family. And I'll pass it off to MIT Aoi.
Cool. Thanks, Audrey. Let me screen share real quick. Great. All righty. Cool. So yeah, MIT Aoi. So my code puzzle, I wanted to first say my code puzzle maker, Angelica, unfortunately couldn't make the live stream for the solutions, but together we had the privilege of making MIT Aoi, which a lot of you guys enjoyed, and obviously I know some of you guys didn't enjoy so much. But to give some context, I guess some of the techniques that we incorporated in the intended solve path were inspired by old Five Nights at Freddy's theory videos I used to watch, which some of you guys might be able to appreciate. But yeah, so I guess to hop straight into things, on the very start of the puzzle, you're not really given much. All you see is this UI here that I've included a screenshot of at the bottom, where you can't really interact with much and it feels like you're just stuck off the get-go. But after playing around with the UI and eventually realizing that you're able to move the Wiimote around, you might find out that there's some sort of interaction that you can do whenever you press a particular button on the Wiimote. The particular button itself might be able to be discovered if you're clever enough to check the tab, because on the tab itself, the favicon of the website for MIT Aoi is the letter A, or the A icon. And so pressing the A button on the Wiimote actually sends out an API request. And if you happen to hover the button hover the Wiimote over the close button, over the close pill, and press A, you'll see a bit of a glitch animation. And visually, nothing immediately changes. You happen to not be able to move the Wiimote anymore, and the screen is stuck. So exploring the dev tools, opening inspect element on the website, after, passing over a couple of the red herrings that we dropped in the elements, you might find that there is a new sort of div that pops up called stage one hint with an asset linked called pause v2png. And if you route to this asset, you just see the exact same thing actually as the starting sort of visual screen. But there's always more to the eye than what immediately comes at first. And in fact, encoded in this PNG is a little bit of extra information, which you can discover through a CTF technique called EOF steganography. And so encoded within the PNG after you download it, if you list out the contents at the very end of the PNG as a string, you find that there's this pause indicator after the end marker, and there's this long string. And some of you guys might recognize this as a base64 string. And so if you convert that with any sort of script, you into normal ASCII or normal text, you find that it actually is a Google Drive link. So then navigating from that PNG to this Google Drive link, you go to this file called audio.wav, audio.wav. And quickly, if I can pull this up for us, I can quickly play what that audio.wav sounds like. And if some of you guys are familiar with some Wii music, it might sound familiar, but there's this sort of wailing noise that's playing in the background. And I won't play the entire audio, but you can take time to listen to it yourself. It again. Cool. All right, as I was saying, yeah, so you guys can listen to the audio on your own time if you have the chance. I think it's pretty cool to check it out. But sort of this wailing sound suggests that there's something deeper going on with this audio. And you can try a couple of techniques, but one of them that actually might be that proves successful, as the slide suggests, is running the audio file through a spectrogram. And if you do that, you'll find that we've hidden a little bit of a message that says XOR key : Wiimote. And so this information tells us that the word Wiimote is itself an XOR key, but we don't really know what to operate on. What else should we run this XOR operation with the word Wiimote on? So that at this point you might be a little bit stumped, because you found an XOR key, but you don't really know what to XOR it with. And so you might go back and see what else may have changed in the dev tools. In the dev tools, after doing that initial glitch with the UI by hovering the Wiimote over close and pressing A. And you might find that a new actual asset has also been loaded in. Originally, the source for the Wiimote was puzzle/wiimote.png, but after that interaction, you'll see that it's changed to wiimote-q.png. And in a similar technique, obviously, this looks like a normal Wiimote, but in reality, there's more hidden behind it. It looks identical, so you won't notice it at first. But if you put this through any sort of common online steganography visualizer, these are free and available online, and one that we use for this puzzle is called Stag Online. And so if I go ahead and drop in that visual, and I press browse bit planes, immediately on the least significant bit plane, red 0, green 0, and blue 0, you actually find important information for this puzzle. You find a sequence of 7 characters, which is the exact same number of characters in the word Wiimote. And you might realize that there's sort of a relationship here. We have a 7 character string and also a 7 character XOR key. And by then doing an XOR operation with that string that we've just uncovered and the word Wiimote, we end up getting this palindrome, this string ROWR. And at first also you might be kind of like, well, what do I do with this? It's cool that it's a palindrome, but after spending some time and looking at the rest of the UI that we've originally given, you might notice that these letters, these three unique letters, are the only letters that start our three main pills on the Wii menu, which are W, O, and R. And so by taking these letters and moving and mapping each one to one of the pills, you can actually move the Wiimote over each one of these pills. And I can do a little bit of a demo of that in that exact ordering. So it was R, and I'll press the A on every single icon. W, R, W, O, R. And upon doing that, you're granted your flag. And so that is MIT OWI, which for some of the clever ones of you, you may have noticed that that's actually an anagram for the word Wiimote, which was obviously very important throughout the puzzle. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed solving that puzzle as much as Angelica and I did making it. And with that, I'll hand it off to Ryan for face value, our next puzzle.
Cool. Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Ryan, and today I'll be presenting face value. Okay, so a quick overview for face value is this is a game inspired by the Wii screen in Me, and the goal is to have a combination of 10 traits, each with 10 values, that passes a certain threshold. So the constraints once you enter the game is that you have a budget of 5 changes from a starting phase, and you have these 3 additional conditions to pass. Your confidence has to be at least 99.9%. There is a sync pass that needs to be also verified, and you also need to have a charm score of at least 3.0. So this is a game somewhat similar to like probing a black model. And the idea is that you want to kind of just play around with the model and see what you can extract and see what patterns are good. So the actual mechanism of the hidden model is that it actually computes a raw score of your 10 traits, and then it passes through a sigmoid to produce a probability. So to score a 99.9%, you need around a 6.9 in raw score. Yeah, and one thing is that the intended solution wasn't supposed to be somewhat bashy, but noticed that a lot of people were able to bypass our rate limits and solve it still. So I'll now give a walkthrough of the actual solution. Yeah, so for the first stage, the puzzle hints that there are some features that are more sensitive than others. And the main phrase is that there's a hint saying especially together. And the idea was that this puzzle required to sweep across multiple traits instead of just one. So in this case, the first step was just to look around the puzzle to find what traits were sensitive. And as a quick walkthrough, if you just enter the lab, one thing you can notice is that if you just hovered over the user's hair, the the tag sensitive pops up. You can also notice this in inspect. Like underneath this, you should be able to find like the phrase sensitive as well. Uh, like right here as well. So the first thing that was sensitive was the hair, and the next thing was to now actually inspect the console, or sorry, the network, and as you queried and inspected the responses. Oh, uh, let me query a few more times. Uh, there's like a debug that happens like once every few queries that tells you that their eyes are also sensitive. So using these two combinations, you're supposed to greedily approach this by fixing all other traits and just sweep through all 100 combinations of their hair and eyes. And from doing so, you should get that having a combination of hair equals 3 and eyes equals 5 gets a huge jump compared to other scores. And this actually activates a trigger bonus that involves these two traits. Yeah, and the next stage was understanding what the constraint for sync was. And similarly, if we just swept through each human trait and looked at whether the combination passed, you'll notice that only three of them actually matters, and they were hair, eyes, and glasses. And given that we once you find this combination, you can actually probe out that it happens every five, or like you need a combination of them adding up to a modulo 2 mod 5. And using the two combinations from before, this means that glasses has to be 4 mod 5. And using glasses as 9 hits around 99%. Yeah, and after this, um, you now have two free traits to continue editing, and just toggling around the features, you'll find that it's actually not much harder, and there's actually 15 solutions that get you to the solution. One thing is that they all require these three initial traits to actually first solve the uh, problem. And yeah, now I'll pass it back to Vinny to first go over the honorable mentions.
Cool. Wait, just checking in. Um, okay, cool. Yeah, let me pull up the honorable mentions real quick. Cool. So yeah, I guess before we get to the last puzzle, Melody Marauders made by Timmy and Sarah, we wanted to, while you guys are all still here, take a quick second and give a big thanks to everyone who participated in the puzzle. And we'll do one more thanks at the very end. But we wanted to give a quick shout out to a couple of honorable mentions. On the first solves of each of these puzzles. And so if your name is up here, huge congratulations for being the first solver of that puzzle. And so for Feather Fever, it was Emmanuel. For We Are Family, it was Pratyush. For Face Value, it was Itch the Head. For MIT Aoi, it was Kieran. And then for Survival of the Sixes, it was Cut on B. And for Melody Marauders, it was Itch the Head again. So double shout out for Itch the Head for being the first solver for two of those puzzles, which is very exciting. Yeah. And it was also super cool to see all of you guys, jumping around in the Discord as soon as one of these first solves sort of came out. I know that, sitting and watching the leaderboard is not something that's super exciting, but once someone does solve it and seeing those scores change is always a super exciting thing to see. So I think we're having a couple of technical difficulties, so hold on with us for just one extra minute, but then we'll be able to start our last uh live stream last segment of the live stream with Melody Marauders walkthrough. Oh yeah, by the way, as we're sort of getting ready for this last walkthrough, feel free to start dropping some questions in the chat if you guys have any about any of the puzzles or any of the um, you know, questions for the team ourselves. Because at the very end, once Melody Marauder is over, we'll do also a short time for Q&A across all of the team. But I think with that, I'll hand it off to Timmy, and I think we're just about ready to get started with Melody Marauder.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, well, thank you so much, Vinny, just for walking us through so far. It was a lot of fun to make Melody Marauder. I know in the Discord there was a decent few mix-up of questions of like what was the context for it, what kind of like cryptographic background was intended for it. And so honestly, a lot of the background from my side was it was really based on a lot of video games that I've played just growing up. And so notably, I think a lot of my childhood was pretty formed by Nintendo games. So this is like a mix of like Zelda, like Breath of the Wild kind of storyline. And you might notice some of the gameplay, if any of you guys have played RPGs before, Xenoblade Chronicles is a pretty well-known one. And they have a battle system that's pretty similar to the battle system that's showcased in Melody Marauder. And so, one second here, I'm just gonna switch displays real quick. All right, so it's similar to what's described in Xenoblade Chronicles, and then part of the story also is just like Pokemon, as many of you guys can imagine. So I got a fun mix of different elements that are being able to be displayed there. And so I think with that, honestly, we can jump into some of the solutions of how it goes about. And so first, as you may have noticed, for each of the different stages that are displayed, there are key themes that are being like secret melodies. And actually, just to make it a little bit more interactive, I'm going to try to live play some of it together with you guys. So while we're here on live stream, I think it'd be fun just to do a little bit of like live solving it together. And so what I'll do right now is you may have noticed that some of the current puzzle is taken down for now, but I'll just pull up a local host real quick. So that way you guys can see some of the background that was in the thought process for it. But while that's getting booted up, for the different melodies that you may have noticed, the first one was the fight against Bowser. And so there is a bit of strategy you could try to think about is like, what is the secret melody for it? And at first, maybe it's not even trivial, oh, is there a secret melody? But you may have noticed that part of the rules suggest that okay, one second. Let me actually start screen sharing here. But part of the rules suggest that there might be secret melodies that might be involved. And so that's part of like the motivation for it. And I'm just going to open up a new Chrome tab here for us to screen share here. All right. So let's take a look at Melody Marauder. Okay, perfect. So there's a lot of different, like maybe you could call it fluff. I honestly thought there's a lot of cool elements of the story, but for the purposes of this, at least for like the tutorial, we can skip some of the story here. So to start off with our Bowser battle, that's the first one that comes up here. And so you'll notice there's a lot going on. There's a lot of different ways you could try different attacks. So we could try just putting different attacks on and seeing what happens. And so we'll notice that these do some amount of damage. I would recommend on your own time kind of reading through the how to play, just because that gives a lot of helpful context. But kind of for conciseness, I'll just skim through this for now. And so instead what we have here is these different movesets that you have. And so you can try different things out, but what's important is you check the network log or the console log, which is pretty similar to some of the other puzzles you may have seen here. And so currently we don't see anything, but let's say we do try to submit an attack. We get a battle response that pops up here. And so you might as well check it out, see what's going on here. And we have a bunch of different fields. And maybe it seems like some of these are irrelevant, like this first one, AWS sector, that probably like doesn't really mean anything to us as puzzle solvers. But as we look through these, one of these seems a little bit weirder. This like feels kind of unnatural to be placed here. And then it says frame latency adjustment gain. And at least like between us, that's honestly a load of hard garbage. Like what could that possibly mean? But you might notice that the acronym is FLAG. So you might as well check out to see what this is for. And so I'm going to pull up a decoder real quick, like a base 64 decoder.
Oh, Timmy, you're muted right now.
Perfect. Okay, sorry. I just realized that some of the audio might not have been fully coming through. But it looks like Team was able to fix that for us. So just to get back to this, what we were doing is we're trying to figure out what this could possibly be. So we might as well put it through a decoder. I feel like this is a standard decoding algorithm. And so we check it out and it says the first 7 notes of the Super Mario Bros. Theme are super catchy. And so there's a possible ideas of what that could try, but we might as well try it, right? And so if you haven't played a Mario game, I guess you may have to look this up. In theory, the whole puzzle can be solved without any sort of a Googling, but in case you haven't heard of it, I'll just play it for us real quick. Okay, so that is like the Mario melody. You can probably Google it up if you need to. And then you notice there's like this big animation that happens. Now if we check back here in the battle stage, we can see here that we have a new flag here. So we might as well check to see what this is for. And this gets us, sorry, for some reason this is acting up a little bit. But if we decode this time, we'll get chunk 1 is this. And that is the first step for us for actually being able to solve it. And so you'll notice that's how the first level of this goes. And the levels that follow after this are pretty similar. And so instead of actually fighting through all of them, what I think it might do is I'll at least do the first one, because I know some people in the Discord were asking, how do we actually like fight these bosses? And I saw some pretty cool innovations around it. I saw people making different like macros to try to like fight quickly. And I respect it honestly. Like you gotta beat the game somehow. But the intent for some of these first rounds was just to be able to like spam some of the enemy intents. And so if I just spam these weakness ones, and you see there's a counterplay here that's being activated, it should pretty much get us there. I think one more hit and then we'll be all set. All right. Okay. Actually, one more should do the trick. All right, and there we go. That is the first step for our puzzle here. And so hopefully this one, I think part of my thought process for this was for it to be a little bit more of just a kind of like a tutorial level, just for you to like try different parts of the puzzle out, explore it. And so the flag that was there is meant to be kind of like a motivating factor for you to figure out later on the other parts of the puzzle. I think it starts to get trickier on a little bit some of the more other stages. So let's take a look. If we go on to, oh yeah, I'll skip this for now. If we go on to the next one, our next one is Sands. And so our first gut check might just be to check the network again and see if anything pops up here. And so we don't see the battle yet. Let me just put some random attack. And so as many of you guys noted, and maybe even made some help tickets about it, this one doesn't really give us anything immediately. In fact, it almost seems like it's irrelevant. And so a fair question is like, what are we supposed to do now? And if you maybe notice, there's a new polling API that's being used here. And so if we take a look at this, we could try to take a look at it, and maybe it could seem relevant. And then we get this that says this big, huge number. You can try to maybe put it in some decoders. Honestly, I bet you could probably just try to like run it through like chat or codecs. But the problem with this is as with general encryption, with really big prime numbers, you actually can't just like brute force decode it. And I guess that's kind of the whole point of encryption. But so what makes it tricky here is we need to figure out what is some way we can try to like find a weakness for it. Because otherwise we kind of have no hope here. But as we guessed with the first one, we might as well try some sort of secret melody for Sans. And so this might be a little bit of guess and check, but if you are familiar with Sans and like the context of him, he's from a game with a very famous theme of Megalovania, like his boss theme. So we might as well try that. So there we go. Okay, there we go. And then looks like something happened, so might as well check back. So I'm going to open the network tab again. And this time when we look at our, oh, sorry, I forgot to keep the network tab open. Let's redo that real quick. Okay, so we get another valid response, and this time if we check, it says, oh, wait a second, maybe I missed it. Let me try that one more time. All right, I think that hopefully. Okay, there is a chance actually that it might not register again because we've already used it up. But if you try to do it on your own, what you'll end up seeing is that it says that the player HP should be multiplied by 1,000,000. And says that's the secret to beating this level. And so to find your player HP, you can kind of just look at the UI here. It just says so, but in case it's not too easy to find there, it also says it here. And so that's actually the secret key for these encryption. So if you try, you can write some code for this. I guess in theory you could have a coding agent run some code for it as well. But if you tried 283 million and use that as the secret key, and I'll let you guys kind of try that on your own time, you'll notice that that actually gets us all the way there. And that's the solution for this decoding. And so the format for it will look really similar to how we did for chunk one. And so I'm kind of just going to skip that part for now, just for just for time. But the core idea for like beating in terms of sands, we can kind of just do the same thing we have been doing. So I'm just going to spam this enemy intense here. And the one thing you notice is, oh, like there's this healing thing that's over here. And I guess I haven't talked about that yet, but there's two major heal commands. And so I'll showcase one of them right now. So if I do this command, which is a healing, this is the first time I've been using one of these combo charges. And so the idea for this is, in theory, you could become like fully using your own just random ones, but maybe there's something you can like progressively build that's part of the game itself. And so if I try this one too, this should get us some back HP. And so hopefully that'll get us back into a better stage. But there's another caveat actually that I'll explain later on, for stage 4. But for now, let's just kind of get through this and beat him real quick. Shouldn't be too hard for us to get a quick swing through. Yeah, and just like always, I'm just going to keep spamming things. It's already halfway there, so I think the rest of this should be pretty easy. And hopefully Sans is a familiar character for many of you guys as well. I feel like especially when I was in middle school, like playing Undertale a bit, like with friends in school was like a core memory for me. And I feel like that's part of some of the rationale we had when we were making the me theme, is just to like pull on those like strings of nostalgia. So I feel like that's really what made this a pretty special game for me. And I think with this, hopefully that'll be the killing blow. Oh, okay, I think we gotta risk it for it. Hopefully this will get us there before we die ourselves. Bang! Okay, alright, so we're halfway there. We'll just skip some of this. And now, let's skip some more story. Now we're here for level 3. Now if you haven't noticed this guy, his name is Gleam. But for context, I put World of Light here, because I know maybe Gleam is not as recognizable of a character. And so we have Gleam here. And now, in terms of how we want to go about solving the puzzle, we might as well try what we have been doing so far. And so let's just clear some of this here. I'm going to open this up again. So I know some people here mentioned that it's starting to feel a little bit like less intuitive, like what should we actually be doing here? And so I think in general with puzzle solving, just like try different things and see what happens. And so we check here, we see if there's any help with the flag, and it says the margins of this payload are too small to store Gleam secrets. And so maybe for some of you this is like a clever joke. I feel like for me, honestly, writing this, I was like laughing in my own head. But if you haven't heard of it before, I'm going to look up Fermat's little theorem, and then I'll look up margin payload joke. Or sorry, not payload, but hopefully it'll still come up here. Oh, okay. Huh. For some reason, it defaulted to Yahoo. But there is actually a pretty common joke that Fermat wrote a truly marvelous proof. And like he had solved Fermat's he had a proof for his last conjecture. And it was really famous, but like he didn't have the proof for it. And so this has been a pretty big running joke in the community. And so the biggest part of this was to hint to Fermat's factorization. And so Fermat's factorization, well, what could it be used for? Well, that will need to use the actual secret key. And so for World of Light, if you play the game Smash Ultimate, it's the World of Light theme. So I'll play that here. Let me think. And while I'm actually doing this, something else I remember reading in the Discord is, how do I know what key it's in? Because you could have a melody that's like, starting on C, starting on D. So another thing if you're just kind of like playing around, you might notice is there is a thing here called starting note. And so because it says E, like that kind of tells you which, like, how modulated you are. And there's also a one for melody length. Because I know some melodies could be longer or shorter, it might be a little bit confusing. So that's just there to give you like a little bit more context so you're not fully guessing. But this time, hopefully, when we look at it, it says, where is our flag? Luminous cache warmed. Now it's kind of confusing. That's like not too trivial. But hopefully cache, when you think of a cache, it rings the same bell of like memory. We like might as well check where our memory is. So why don't we check our memory in our application? And as you might notice, there's a lot of different memory you could check out here. And so there's some stuff going on here. None of this is really too helpful. But if we check this overture cache, there's these signal records. And then I'll let you guys kind of like play around later on. But this luminous one, which maybe now seems familiar, has a big decoding thing here. And it has an N value and it has different values like a C value. And so this is a typical RSA cipher. And RSA, I mean, as I'm sure you've probably heard this in maybe a discrete math class, or it's a pretty popular, pretty popular framework for encryption. And so I think what makes it really strong is the fact that the primes are unbreakable, or as in they're hard to factor. And so normally this is the true case. Normally RSA is really strong because we've multiplied these two primes together and we can't decode them. But what I've done in this case is I've put two primes that are within, I'll just say like an epsilon amount of distance so that we can do factoring. But you still can't run a normal factorizing algorithm. And so instead, you can use Fermat's factorization. And so that is where Fermat comes back in. And so, again, for that, you can write some code for it. It's not an insanely hard algorithm. And if you want, you can also have like an coding agent run it for you. But that is part of the, I think what makes it pretty special is a lot of the decryption, when they do like different testing to see is it a strong thing, they'll have people brute test it with all sorts of different like advanced factoring things. And so that's why, the race to find a factorizing algorithm for primes is one of the biggest races out there. But who knows, maybe you'll be one of you guys that solves that. But at least for now, let's just try to focus on finishing Galeem. And so I've actually started to make some progress here. But the main goal for this is actually, I haven't used any of these other combos yet. And so I won't go into full explaining how they work, but if you read the how to play, there is a posture chain. And so what that means is, for different kind of games, maybe the most iconic one is in Pokemon where it goes, like, oh, you use distraction, oh, super effective, or something like that. There's different ways you can try to degrade how the enemy currently is. And so that's the idea with this, is that you can change their current state here, and then you get multipliers of how much damage you want. And so now is the best time to deliver damage. So they start off all at a normal state, and then they go to staggered, and then toppled, and then finally dazed. Sorry, excuse me. And so I'm going to try to just deliver some damage here and get some progress going up here. Alright, okay, I think we can maybe get away with one more. How are we doing here? Okay, we're making solid progress. And now one other thing in terms of just strategy for how to beat the game is you don't want to use your heals when you're on the stable condition. Because as you might have noticed, once you use a move, as in one of these combos, you can't reuse it again until your enemy posture resets. And so that means if you use heal while your enemy is unstaggered, then you're never going to recover it. Unless you go through the whole cycle. And so I'll demonstrate what I'm saying right now, because that might just sound like words. So I so far haven't used heal, but I'm getting pretty low on player HP, so I might as well use it now. So I'll do recovery guard. So let's see what we have here. Okay, and so I've gotten that recovered, and now we'll notice this is used. I can't use it again. And I'm gonna leave this one unused for now. And let me try just keeping going with our pattern of toppling him now. Okay, so I think one more topple should probably do the trick. Let's see. And then while I'm doing this, actually, you might notice that some of these are familiar themes. Like Force Choke, for example, one of my favorite fandoms is the Star Wars universe, and so a lot of this game design was just based on things that I found really interesting growing up and has become a pretty big part of my life. And so, oh, okay, I might actually need to use the heal. I was hoping not to. No, it looks like we're almost here, actually, with this boss. I bet we can probably finish him off in 3 moves. So we'll just get through the story again. And that was the fourth one. And I was a little sad because I know so many of you guys got through the first three ones. I mean, I made a lot of progress just from like monitoring. But the fourth one is the one that seemed a little bit trickier. And I think that's fair. I do think of all of them, the fourth one is probably the one that has a little bit more creativity to it. And so I'll display where the setup is for it, and then maybe we'll go to the slides and look at some of how it's actually meant to be decoded. But if we take a look, we should just do what we've always been doing. We'll play around a bit. So we'll try some attacks. We'll see a battle here, and then we can maybe expect some garbage, but this time we get something. We get a ciphertext, a C for ciphertext, but there's not too much we can do with it. It just, we have these values here. And then if we look through, is there anything else that's relevant? Oh, you see chunk 4 is HackMIT 2026. And maybe it seems like, oh, we just got the answer immediately. And I saw a lot of solutions where the first 3 chunks were correct, and the last 4 chunk they put was HackMIT 2026. And so maybe we're wondering, is this like a red herring? What is this supposed to be? That's actually not a red herring. It's pretty crucial to solving it. So we have this. Let's just try some more attacks. I'll try another one here. And so now if we look at it again, we get a ciphertext, but it's a little bit different this time. And so clearly, every time it's being encoded, it's being encoded slightly differently. And so you can try to like run some different differentiating algorithms on this to see what kind of cipher is used. And so if you do that, you might find pretty quickly that this is a stream cipher. But otherwise, you can just keep playing around with things. And as we have been doing, you might as well try a theme. And when you think of Matt, I mean, I bet especially for people our age, like Matt from Wii Sports has got to be pretty iconic. And so this is the Wii channel theme. So I hopefully remember this correctly. There we go, okay. So the Wii channel theme is, or the Mi channel theme, sorry, is pretty iconic amongst most people who play the Wii our age. And so this time, well, hopefully we were expecting something, helpful. But this time it's another just like seemingly random set of values. And so we're like kind of confused on like what we're actually supposed to go from here. There's not that much clarity. And so here actually is where we can notice, and actually I'll probably switch to the slides to explain how this works. But we have these different ciphertexts, so we should keep a track of them. And I'm going to stop screen sharing here actually. And then maybe, do we want to... Perfect. I'm going to pick up the slides here real quick. And so, yeah, as you notice for stream ciphers, part of the common sort of thread behind them is that they use a random nonce to be able to make it randomized. And to make it like fully robust. And so, okay, so yeah, I'll just get through these for now. If you are ever curious later on, feel free to read through them. And so, how general XOR encryption works is we have some ciphertext, and we have our plain text, and we XOR it with a random value. But the biggest thing, like you should always remember, if you take one thing from it, is never reuse your nonce, because that could lead to some serious consequences. And that's actually what's happening here. Is in our case, the random value we're using is the enemy HP. And so you notice if you like kind of dig through the network logs again that every time we use the secret melody, the enemy HP is reset to a previous value. And so what that means is we're reusing this random value R, or R nonce. And so once you get a list of different ciphertexts, let's say you have C1, C2, C3, and so forth, you only really need 2, and you have P1 and P2. If you XOR C1 and C2, and you kind of look at some of the math, you get P1 XOR P2. And in general, maybe you might think, oh, XORing it still might not leak that much information, but as long as you are leaking a little bit of information that the probability is like greater than 50% of differentiating it, it's GG's, it's game over. And so in this case, it's actually game over because we could figure out that one of the plain texts is chunk 4's HackMIT 2026. And so at that point, if you just do a bit of manipulation, you can XOR the different texts and get your final answer for P2. And so I know that's a little bit trickier. It's maybe not as streamlined as the other ones, but XOR encryption honestly has been a big fault of some major algorithms out there, and some of the biggest hacker attacks, even just Google searches, will tell you how dangerous it can be. So might as well put some awareness out there. Never reuse your nonces. But with that, you've gotten through all 4 stages, you've beaten the bosses. There's a bit of a cute backstory afterward that follows through. But in terms of the puzzle itself, you have your 4 chunks. You concatenate them without any delimiters like commas or spaces, just smack dab together. And then the actual answer that you get back is just like a standard hash encryption of your user ID and this flag. that gets you to it. That is the end of Melody Marauder. And so hopefully, as you're playing through it, it's a different mix of different cryptographic schemes that are like pretty engaging to solve and make use of what are the weaknesses, whether it's like a prime number and seeing, or sorry, like multiplying two prime numbers that maybe are weak primes, or like reusing a nonce, trying to find different weaknesses like that. And I think just in general with puzzle solving, it's always just a good effort to try and play through different styles. And it was honestly a lot of fun for me to just be able to watch you guys and see different ways you guys were thinking about things. And a lot of you guys had ways that like blew my mind that were different than I was thinking, but I was just really impressed by how clever you guys are. And I'm sure the rest of the guys could say the same for their puzzles. And then one final thing I wanted to add, just in case you were trying to beat the game and you solved it, but you just couldn't beat the bosses, is some things here. I tried to say verbally most of them, but you can take a look through this afterwards if you're ever curious.
Awesome. Thanks, Timmy, for taking all that time to sort of walk through the last of the six puzzles, Melody Marauder. Cool. Hit 1 second, I'll hop back on the screen share real quick. But yeah, with that, that sort of wraps up all of the discussions about the six puzzles that the dev team was able to prepare. To give a bit more context, we spent the many of the last several months working on these puzzles, and there was a lot of time that sort of went into each of them, from custom game music to hours on new, very niche ciphers that we had to come up with ourselves, and also bug testing to try and see whether we could withstand, today's LLMs and things like that today. And I think we were able to do an okay job. But yeah, so now before we sort of wrap up, I just wanted to also say thank you to all of you guys. We had over 100 people tuned into the stream today, but also thousands of over 1,000 users on our Discord, as Yuting mentioned at the very start. Um, and so we wanted to open up the chance for you all to ask a few questions to the amazing devs, that I had the privilege to work with over the last few months. And I also wanted to give a quick major shout out to Yuting for being the sort of leader of our sort of puzzle team. So Yuting, if you also wanted to say a quick few words before we wrap up and sort of open questions as well, feel free.
Yeah, hope everyone enjoys solving the puzzles, whether you were like top 50 or you just like happen to stumble upon the puzzle website.
Awesome. Thanks. And with that, yeah, that's the end of the live stream, or the end of the walkthrough. But now we'll be on the live stream for a couple more minutes to sort of take any questions that you guys have. So feel free to drop them in the chat. Thanks, guys. I guess while some questions are coming in, maybe uh we can ask each other, I guess, a couple of questions. I guess, Yiting, what was your uh favorite aspect of the two puzzles you worked on from each?
Let me think. Think what my favorite part of Feather Fever was definitely designing like the art. Like I got to make it birthy, which is really cool.
Yeah, yeah.
What about you?
Mm, I think for me, it probably was the uh doing the steganography, sorry, the spectrogram, encoding like the XOR Wiimote into the audio.wav file. I think that was like a very full circle moment for me from like previous sort of theories and stuff that I used to watch on YouTube. But okay, looks like we also have a few questions coming in. Um, or maybe just comments. I see some comments about We Are Family being really hard, which is honestly very fair. But it was super cool to see you guys be able to solve a lot of those, a lot more We Are Family, or see a lot more We Are Family submissions as the hint was dropped. So it's good to see. Also, if any of the other sort of puzzle makers want to hop on, feel free to ask or answer questions.
I think for Feather Fever, you see, I was kind of curious. Did you have any like motivation behind some of the Morse code behind it? I think honestly that was one of my favorite parts, was just seeing how the different like musical elements combined into that. Was there like any specific inspiration or just like general puzzle solving you'd seen before?
Yeah.
Oh,
Or
that
Jason,
was
you also want to hop
actually,
on.
yeah. So Jason designed like the core mechanics of the puzzle.
Yeah, I can like briefly talk about that. Um, yeah, so Feather Fever, actually when I first like had the idea for this, the original puzzle was, it only had like two of the three steps involved. So the whole emoji thing was actually not a part of the puzzle initially. I just like really wanted this idea of like rhythm game where you input by pressing a button or holding a button, and then the taps and holds translate to Morse code. And so the way Feather Fever was written was kind of like built based on like how can I make a puzzle where the main idea is like the taps and holds of the spacebar are Morse code. And so every single thing from like designing how the game works to like actually creating the menu theme was built around that. And then the emoji stuff was just like an added on thing for fun. But yeah.
Cool. We'll give it like another minute or two, but then we can wrap up.
I guess another question while I'm at it is, I know as a puzzle team, we were thinking about different possible like backgrounds for like the context of it, and so for previous year we had cool math games as our context. For you guys, did you guys have any sort of like core memories of growing up with the Wii, like that like helped like brought us to this, or yeah, just what was your guys' backgrounds with Wii games or gaming in general growing up?
Are you asking the chat or like us three?
Honestly, both. I'd love to hear in the chat because I imagine a lot of you guys probably grew up with similar consoles at the time. But maybe also you guys like as team, puzzle team, just like yeah, how we got to this. I think that'd probably be cool for them to hear about.
Yeah. For me, I guess played on the Wii a lot growing up. I played like a lot of different Mario games, like Mario Kart Wii, Super Mario Galaxy, Super Mario Galaxy 2, um, Mario and Sonic Olympic games, like sort of a bunch of different Mario games and some other franchise games as well. But yeah, I guess Wii was like my main gaming console growing up, and so that seemed to be somewhat sort of popular among all of the puzzle members, and also it sort of lent to a very nice command center for puzzle itself, which maybe Ethan can also talk about. Sorry to
I
just put you
actually,
on the spot.
oh no worries. I actually did not play Wii before. I've not played Wii games before. I just let me think. Like the games I've played in the past are like I played Chinese League, and then I used to play that with my parents, and I also used to play Genshin. So this is the first time like mm, I guess like I had to design the main page based on like the Wii homepage, and I had to like go through a lot of YouTube videos to find out like how it actually looked like because I've never played it before.
Timmy, what about you?
Yeah, honestly, I think probably pretty similar to you, Vinny. A lot of my childhood is pretty formed around some of these Wii games. Some of the same ones you mentioned, like Galaxy 1 and 2, are pretty fond in my mind. Even Mario Kart Wii. And honestly, maybe if you, from my game, some elements of it are kind of leaking through. I think, yeah, I mean, we were just talking about different themes and different possible ideas for like how we want our puzzle to be structured. It just worked out really well that we can have just like a place where we can have panels for different games to access to, and also be something that's a big part of our childhood as a team, and hopefully for you guys as puzzle solvers, a big part of your guys' childhood as well.
I think we have a question for either Jason or Yusing from the chat about the script. Could you share the script that does the separate into three evenly spaced sequences and the Morse code translation? Do one of you guys want to take that?
Yeah, we can definitely like send it in an announcement in the Discord server later.
Awesome. Cool. Um, cool. But with that, I don't think there are any more questions. So for the sake of time, we'll also probably wrap it up. Yusing, did you want to give any final closing words?
Yeah, and if y'all have any more questions, feel free to drop it in the Discord server. We'll also be monitoring that.
Yeah. Cool. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. I really appreciate those of you who stuck through to the very end. We hope you guys enjoyed, playing and solving all of the puzzles that our team has built up. We spent a lot of time on it, and I know you guys also spent countless nights. I saw some messages going from a single user like for every hour of the day, which was pretty insane. But yeah, so very grateful to be able to build something that, a lot of you guys are directly playing and sort of solving. And for the top 50 of you, looking forward to meeting you guys at HackMIT. Feel free to come up to us and say hi. And also looking forward to next year's puzzles and next year's solvers as well. But yeah, thank you guys so much for tuning in. And until HackMIT. All right, live stream is over. Woo! Good job, guys.